on the IAmDJGamer Podcast, and I got a special guest with me here today. He is gonna put us on game, on teach us some of his tips. The podcast man himself. Go ahead, and introduce yourself, brother.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad we could make it happen. Yeah, my name is Zach, now known as Zach the Podcast Man, also known as Zach David Music, also known as that guy on the street walking around Encinitas, California, right here. And I was gonna ask you, man, where are you located? We're both on the same coast, I think, right?
Yeah, we're on the same coast. I'm over here in Los Angeles.
We're not too far away.
Oh, hey, there you go, man. That's a plus, man. Because sometimes your boy needs, I'm trying to make something out of this, so I'm gonna need tips and stuff like that, man. So hey, that's a plus. That's definitely a
Same
plus.
time zone helps.
There you go. There you go. All right, brother. So before we get into the tips, because look, I as soon as I saw what you do and all that, I said, oh man, this is great. If he could, we could give this out to other podcasters who maybe want to do this, who are in it, who just need more tips and stuff like that. Because it's just there's always more tips that you don't know that you maybe not pick up on. So I'm just like, yeah, I need to talk to this guy. Let's see if we can make something happen. How did you start? How did you start with all of this?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, for sure, I totally hear what you're saying because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And that's when it helps to have people coming in and kind of dropping some knowledge and give them some tips. But yeah, my story is kind of as far as podcast editing goes. I started officially probably, I mean, time flies. It's probably been like 6 years now, at least.
Okay.
And I was just Zach David Music because I'm also a musician, and the podcast editing was kind of part of that business. But now, since unfortunately, pandemic hit last year, and I said, as you can imagine, my gigs just went out the window
Oh
for a while,
yeah.
man. And especially yeah, especially because a lot of my gigs were at like senior homes, old folks homes,
Uh-huh. Okay.
and they have to be super extra careful there, and they couldn't have anybody for a while, obviously, just to protect the old folks,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's when the podcast man was born. I'd had the URL for a couple of years sitting there. I'm like, I'm gonna take off with the podcast man one of these days, and then
Oh yeah.
pandemic hit, and you know how that goes sometimes. It's like one of these days. That's the first tip for anybody is start your podcast. It's never going to be perfect, but and that's what I had to do with my business too. And I see a lot of people during the pandemic, just they had these projects they were kind of pushing off and waiting on, and it's like, now's the time, we got to do it. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, if it went really, when it started was way back when I started working at the radio station in college, and I was editing audio for these politicians that would come in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got really good at editing audio, because they'd come in and they'd be like mumbling over the microphone and like, this is what I'm going to do for the city to help, so I had to
Yeah.
make them sound good. And that was a challenge. So
You
that that's when the podcast man was originally born, like
okay.
15 some years ago, almost 20, I suppose, really. But it's officially established around a year ago. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Same here. I started this. I had a vision because before it's like I try to tell everybody before anything, you gotta have that idea. You gotta have that
Yep.
vision to get started.
Mhm.
So me myself, from editing background, because I went to school to produce and record music, all of that stuff.
Nice.
I did all that, but people used to always tell me, you're good for radio, dude. You have that, that personality. You have the, just
The voice, man. You sound great.
okay. What you just said, I was getting that a lot. I was getting that a
Yeah,
lot back. And
absolutely.
I was like, you know what? Okay. To me, there's always signs. If someone's telling you you're good at something enough times from different people, it's something
Mhm.
to explore. I said, you know what? I'm
Yep.
going to explore it because my son even tells me, Dad, you're very comfortable around the mic. You're very comfortable
Mhm.
around the camera. Like, it's just like sometimes you come up with these things and it's just like it's like I don't know how you do it. Like one time we were doing I think like a blogging thing at a store, and there's where I adopted that phrase, the retro modern game, right? It just hit me. It just like, okay, I'm gonna go with that. I'm
Yeah,
just
it's awesome.
so that's where that started with me. And I was like, you know what? I got an idea. Podcast, talk about games, collectors, just the people's gaming history and stuff like that. Because I determined a few things. I said I'm not as good as a gamer as I am interviewing people. I said, I like
Mm.
gaming, but I know I'm not like a like pro or anything like that. I said, but I could interview the guy that is good. I
Right.
said I could do that.
That's the thing.
And
Yeah.
so definitely, man, definitely. So that's amazing how you got started again, just again kind of editing and being the podcast man, and just it's wonderful, man. It's wonderful. Like I said, I paid attention to your page, and I was like, man, these tips. I said these are good. These are good because sometimes, like I said, I didn't think about it. I just and it's helpful because some people won't share that, and big
Mhm.
ups to you for sharing that stuff because we need that, man. We need that because and then if someone like me, I'm very appreciated for people that lend out a hand. So it's like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, big shout out to the podcast, man. If I, if I make it somewhere big, I'm like, oh hey, no, go follow this guy right here. Just
Oh man, thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah. So
Oh, well, yeah, man. I think it's really exciting right now, the atmosphere on Instagram and everything. And I loved connecting up with you too, because I love connecting with people with good vibes. And you can tell like when someone is out there just like dropping good vibes, and it's a cool community, it's really exciting with the other small business people, seeing the podcasters pop up. Like, hey, it was just overnight that there are now 2 million podcasts in existence,
there you
which
go.
is pretty crazy. So just when we're recording this, like overnight, March 23rd to 24th, over 2 million. And now like, I think they said 38% are active or something. So it's definitely not like a lot of people are saying, it's too crowded. Everybody's starting a podcast. I'm not going to do that. But that's not true at all. Cause if you think of how many blogs and YouTube channels and stuff,
Yeah.
there are way more of those. So it's exciting, over 2 million podcasts, but it's definitely not like over, it's the market isn't overflowing or anything. There's space for everybody still.
Yeah, there's space for everybody because just like anything, there's going to be people that you know what, I did want to do this, but nah, I don't want to do this. There's going to be a whole lot of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Or you know what, damn, this is just too much work, or just the timing of stuff too sucks for
Mhm.
certain people. But there's going to be a lot of that. That's why I tell people, certain people, like I said, don't worry, just stick to it. I said stick to it.
Mhm.
Be if you're going to create a persona, have it be just from different people, but or originally it's got to be you. It's got to be something that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. I
So
love what you're saying. I love that. You can kind of take ideas from other people, but you make it your own for sure. Absolutely. Like it doesn't make sense to be out here like totally reinventing the wheel. Like we kind of look at how other people are doing it, but then we put our own spin on it. We make it our own. And like, hey, DJ gamer, that's awesome. Like how many people are into gaming,
yeah,
and that's a great niche. You got to find your niche in podcasting. You can't, like they say, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. So if you can find your niche, you can find your group of people. That is really powerful. And like you said at the top of the show, why are you starting a podcast? That's so important. Find your
it is
why. Why are you doing it? If you're just like, I don't know, just maybe it'll help my business a little bit. You got to have a reason. You got
purpose.
to, yep, you got to have a purpose. Find your why. And one more thing I love that you said is stick with it, because there's going to be weeks, there's going to be months where it's like, oh man, is anybody listening? And it's just
Yeah.
kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
that type of thing. And
Yes.
also don't stress over the analytics and stuff like that. It's definitely, in most cases, probably all cases, it's definitely quality over quantity as far as listeners go. You can get that quality group of people, your community that you really connect with, And that's way more important than just the numbers, like
Oh yeah.
download numbers and stuff like that. So that stuff is important to check too, but definitely quality and finding a way to connect with your listeners too, just outside of the podcast. Because there are some services like Go Wildcast, I think it's called, and some other ones. They're trying to be like the Facebook of podcasting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Pod Booking, I think, is another one, and these are awesome. But there's still really no like atmosphere like on YouTube, for example, where they put up a video and everybody's commenting and stuff. Podcasting doesn't really have that yet, but I think that's coming out this year.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But as podcasters, like if you guys and gals who are podcasters, and the more you can find ways to connect with your community, that's going to be really huge. Like whether it be Clubhouse is a new thing, how to connect with people. Some people do these like Discord rooms and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
or have a landing page in your website where you can have your listeners do like a little survey, get them involved in the process, just and then of course have them follow you on social media and stuff so they can keep kind of following along with the community there. And involvement, building your group, and everybody, we need to be part of like our little groups these days, because it's like we can't see people as much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to have these groups of friends and like communities and whatnot, just because and hopefully, with the vaccine and stuff, hopefully things are going in the right direction, but we still need to be careful. So it's the online space is huge right now. Like we need our communities, man, for sure.
That we do. That we
Mm.
do. And I mean, this pandemic thing is kind of, you could kind of feel that it's coming towards the end because everyone is getting vaccinated, everyone
Yeah.
is doing all that and everything. So, and I'm just like, okay, because I remember before the pandemic, I bought equipment. I said, okay, blogging is going to be most of my thing. Going out to these shows, because I go to all these shows, all the Comic Cons, all of the game ones, all of that stuff, and I interact with people. So I was just like, oh, I was ready for the year. I said, I got a drone, I got a gimbal, I got all this.
Man.
I was ready.
Yeah.
And then that happened. I was like, oh man, okay. So I felt like I was stuck, but nonetheless, did not discourage me. I said, I could still find ways to do stuff. I said, I'll still find ways, because at the end of the day, it's just like topics. Topics never stop. Things never stop. And like I said, if we could talk about it and maybe come up with answers, or just, expression, then we good. And that's one of the things I constantly try to tell my buddy, because he's trying to stream and he's like, oh man, it's just not. I said, you just barely started. I said, the first thing you got to do is going in, know that it's gonna be a process. I said, I said, unless you hit the jackpot and boom, you start getting followers, then okay, that's fine. But no one knows you. I said, it's just like me. I told him, look, I've been doing this almost like, getting close to a year, and I'm just now like, discovering new ways to connect with people, because ultimately you got to connect with people that like your vibe and that really can relate to you. And that's not everybody. That's what I'm saying. You're gonna get those people, the loyal listeners. And from there, hey, they'll probably spread the word out. Hey man, check this dude out. Oh yeah, he was talking about this. And and it goes back to that. Really, it goes back to that. That it's the word of mouth, or maybe they'll catch you. Because I've had people commenting, hit me on the DM, like, hey dude, I caught your video. You know what? The vibe and everything good. That's why I said, okay, because sometimes we get discouraged as far as like, damn it, I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm not doing anything. But honestly, those few comments, I mean, that's a game changer, because I'm like, you know what? I'm on the right path. I'm just going to keep going, because obviously somebody's listening. Like, because otherwise nobody hits you with a comment, because I told them, sometimes your words and everything can impact somebody that maybe is having a bad day. That's why I'm always about the positivity, because I've been there when, it's just like feels like no one's listening, but then you hear either music or something that just gives you a better feeling. So that's been my thing this whole time.
Yeah, man. I totally agree with you. It's definitely, and it's okay to feel like that too. Like you also see these Instagram accounts and stuff that are like all hustle, but the truth is there's days where we just feel like crap,
Oh yeah.
and we feel like and sometimes you just got to take that day and you got to maybe you just play games or you read or you go out
Mm-hmm.
and exercise, check out the ocean or whatever you do. But um, you take that day and then get back to it, because
Yeah.
that's part of the process too. Is it's okay to feel like crap, but you also got to know that um, everything you're doing, even the days you're resting, and even the days where your post got like one comment or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you just know that it's all part of the process, like you say, and it's all part of the learning process too.
It
Like
is.
never, yeah, never be scared to fail at different experiments along the way. And it's yeah, so many podcasts, so many YouTube channels, they come and go. Like most podcasts don't make it past 25 episodes, and at least half. And that's because you really, a lot of times you don't start seeing results until you've been going at it for 6 months or a year, you know? So
Yep.
it's,
Oh yeah.
but along the way, make sure that a big part of it is also um, working on marketing and that engagement too, you know, because at the same time, it's like if you're just doing the episodes, but you aren't doing engagement on social media or you aren't doing marketing and stuff like that, then it's going to be hard to get, like in the industry, we call them ear balls, you know, like
Mhm.
eyeballs, but from your
Oh
ears.
yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
going to be hard to get ear balls if you're not focusing on that too. You got to get those ear balls, man.
Yeah, no, that's I've always get from different people. I said, when you hear people's success stories, they're gonna tell you out the back, it didn't happen overnight. You hear that
Yep.
constantly. This did not happen overnight. But I
Hmm.
always say, I say, okay, imagine at any given point, if they would have given up, we wouldn't have this. Like it's just,
Hmm.
whatever they created, like, just as far as I think Thomas Edison he constantly kept failing the light bulb idea.
Yeah,
He failed over, I don't know how many times. Can't give you an exact number. Let's just say 100 times. He failed over 100 times.
probably at least. Yeah.
But when they told him, what did he learn? He said, I learned 100 times on how not to make a light bulb, because I only had to be right that one time.
Yep. Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
just like, obviously, like I said, it's more than just getting on the mic and speaking. I said,
Hmm.
you eventually have to put it out there. And sometimes that's why so some of my listeners, that I tell them, you know what, damn, I'm just not feeling good. I just been
Hmm.
drowned. But as you opening up, and then I got so much good feedback when I did. I said, you know what, I'm not feeling
Hmm.
good. Sometimes I'm
Hmm.
just tired. I just don't want to do this. And then, my goodness, when I posted that, it was just like, I'm feeling the same way, man. But we
Yeah.
have to, and that's how you engage with the audience that really
Hmm.
cares. I'm like, you know what,
Yep.
Mango, okay, you guys gave me a little bit more strength here to just keep pushing, because you're gonna get those bumps when you feel that it's not going anywhere. It
Yeah.
is that's
Hmm.
just the nature.
Yeah. I think that's so important what you said, man. It's being authentic is another one of the mantras that I have like near the top of the list for my clients. I say, like we said at the top, you got to find your why. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
got to put in the time with engagement and marketing, but really being authentic. And like I found that a lot of this stuff goes hand in hand, whether it's a podcast, whether it's your business as an entrepreneur, whether it's being a musician or whatever it is. Being authentic is so important. And I think right now people are just tired of like seeing these ads where it's all like rainbows and unicorns and butterflies and stuff like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people, we want to be real now because we need to be here for each other, you know, and it's not always rainbows and
No, it's not.
butterflies and unicorns. So like if you can open up and be authentic, that is so huge. And like if you're goofy, you know, be good. That's another thing with business right now that's really exciting, is like you can be an authority in what you do and you can be super knowledgeable, but you can also be a weirdo and have
Yeah.
fun, you know. And
Have fun with it.
yep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's another thing. Like if you find yourself as a podcaster, like, oh man, I have to record another episode, or oh, if you find yourself looking at it
Yeah.
like
Nah.
that, then you got to change your perspective and fix some things for sure. And that
That's what
that
I'm
goes
saying.
with. Mhm.
And yeah, because that's what I said. you find yourself, because I took that and I remember just doing my homework as far as like wrestling personas. Every one of them said, "Oh, I took a little bit from here, I took a little bit from this guy, and I made it my own." That's the same thing I always tell people. It's just like you find yourself, because when you're streaming and you're yourself, it's naturally everything comes out. So it's just like
Mhm.
you don't have to force anything. You
Yep.
don't have to do that. It's not like you're forcing to be something that you don't want to. That's what I'm saying. You take a little bit from here, and then you just shape it to you. You shape it to you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
important. It's very important that you find yourself more than anything before you even think about, throwing yourself out there like that. Okay, who am I? Who am
Yeah.
I? What,
Absolutely.
you know, what am I going to say? And, am I comfortable with this? Because ultimately it's comfort. You got to be comfort. So I've gotten enough
Mhm.
feedback from the guests that I have, like, hey man, that was good, you know what? And that's
Yep.
why I was like, yeah, I see, I said I know myself enough to where it's like I can be comfortable with my guests talking, just we can just go ahead and discuss whatever it is that we're discussing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's the best style too. I mean, different podcasts have different styles, but usually if it can be conversational, like, of course, if it's a how-to podcast, that's kind of a different style. You have different styles, but people love listening to conversations and authentic conversations. it's
Yeah.
it's huge. So, but yeah, of course, also, good to keep in mind, if you think of it more on the business side, like, hey, putting the hammer down, like, okay, why should people listen to my podcast? Who's going to like my podcast? Why are they listening? Who am I to say that? So you also have to look at the business
Hmm.
side of it. So if you can provide that value and be that authority in what you're doing, whether it be recreational or business side or comedy or true crime or whatever you're
Yeah.
doing, be the authority, bring the value, but be yourself and be authentic.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
That's why I said, man, you know what? I know, I just don't know what it is about that I could just we could speak, and then it flows, because that's what I didn't know, that when you have a constant flow, because you're comfortable talking about the subject,
Hmm.
and naturally, I remember before I used to write questions down.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten to a point where it's just like I don't write them. I just like I said, you know what? I'm gonna challenge myself here, where I'm just gonna do enough homework on my guest to just be like, go for it without reading off a script.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with maybe writing some questions down and whatnot. But at the beginning, I caught myself, okay, I'm gonna ask this, I'm gonna ask that, and next thing I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I'm just gonna just see where it goes and
Mhm.
see what direction I go in as far as the flow and everything. So now I just go for it. I just gonna slowly and then smoothly, because I want to see
Yep.
the direction I take it in, because I always said, okay, I want to take it this direction to where it like we went through a certain order, but without
Yeah.
writing the questions down. So
Yeah. And that's great advice. Like, even if you do write down the questions and have kind of an outlay for it, one thing that I always encourage is also, like you said, just go with the flow. Like, maybe you have your list of questions, but maybe the guest brings it in a completely different direction,
yep.
and that might be something super valuable. And if it's not, hey, you can edit it out.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of podcasting too. Unless I mean, even if you're live streaming it, which isn't too popular yet, but you could still, once you release the episode, edit out what you want to,
Hmm.
but um, live streaming, most people still don't. I think last time I looked at the stat, it was like under 10%, maybe like 6% are also live streaming the podcast. Just, it's another way to get people checking it out, but it's not huge yet.
Okay. No, yeah, definitely. Because I figured, okay, so, and what I caught myself one time is funny thing you said, that I wrote the questions down. The first question led me, like it just opened everything up, and then my guest started throwing in other things, and then I just said, screw the questions. I'm just gonna adapt to what she's giving me right now and
Yep.
go. And we boom, episode was nice. So I was like, you know what? Sometimes that first question may open up the path, and then you just adapt to whatever your guest throws at you, and you
Yep.
run with it. You run with it. So
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And so have you been on live radio before too? You could do that too, man. You have a good flow.
Like I said, dude, I look, I've just kind of like hinted at the idea of doing live radio
Yeah.
because eventually what I want to do with this is definitely go live. Like, you know, once I have my setup and everything, go just okay, we're gonna stream this live. Just let's just
Yeah.
go. Like that's what I want to do eventually. So
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know if there's a huge rush with it, but you could even like just because back in my days of working at the radio is like guys like you can just go with the flow, and then if you run out of things to talk about, then you just put on a song, because that's like kind of the difference between radio
that's
and
the difference.
podcasting.
You're like, oh,
Uh,
drop this track.
and like as with podcasting, when we're not live, if we run out of things to do, we just like kind of scratch our head for a moment and then talk about what we're going to do, and then we edit it out.
That is the beauty about that. You could just be like,
Yep.
oh, okay, we could just, scratch it, edit it.
Yeah, but with editing, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of times you don't have to edit out a lot, actually, because people are listening to the content, they're listening to the flow of the show. Like what I usually edit out definitely are like weird mouth noises and stuff,
Uh-huh.
just because so many people listen through headphones, and if you get like weird mouth noises coming through your earbuds straight into your eardrum, it's kind of like, oh god, what's
Yeah.
going on with that? Um, but a lot of times ums and silences and stuff aren't as big of a deal, so that's kind of some little tips with editing. And
There you go. There you
do you
go.
do you edit your own show, man?
Yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
do. I do. Because I figured, I said, if I'm gonna be doing all this, I'm gonna edit it because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think just nobody is gonna have that vision that you have as far as when it comes to editing. Like just
Yep.
especially just me being like just creating this. I'm nurturing it. I said okay, but I also take input from other people all the time. So it's just like I always tell my guests, hey, just let me know what you think. What did you thought? And like I said, it's just that always getting feedback, and it's always good.
Yeah, yeah. For some people, definitely makes sense to edit them themselves, and then other people hire out. And but you also have the abilities too, because you've been doing audio and stuff, so you know what's up with editing and
Yeah,
whatnot.
if you have the ear for it and you
That's
have
huge.
like
Yeah.
that's huge. That's huge. That's why I tell everybody. I said, certain people, oh, what kind of music do you listen to? I said, I listen to everything. I said, but
Mhm.
I listen to it and I dive into it. Like I could tell you, oh, that's a snare, oh, that's a drum, oh, that's this, that's that, oh, that's the
Mhm.
beat per second is this. It's like sometimes I'm just like
Yeah.
I dive too much into it.
So
So
yeah, but that's a huge thing you bring up, because a lot of people, they'll hire me because they just don't know as far as the side of like optimizing the audio,
yeah.
like you've probably spent hours trying to get like a snare drum to sound good.
Yeah, I
They-
have. I have.
they'll yeah.
I
And
oh, and
yeah.
it's funny thing you say because when I was recording music and doing all that stuff, I used to be like, I used to tell the artist, I said, sometimes you may question what I'm gonna tell you to do, but believe me, I have an idea. So just if you could work with me,
Yep.
this could work something like because I'm always about pushing different things. I'm like, okay, if we can
Mhm.
make this track sound a little different, throw maybe a unique idea in there, throw in a different sound, because sometimes people think, oh, it has to be all perfect. No, it's sometimes if you twist it
Mhm.
and give it a different sound, it makes the track just like sound like something completely different.
Yep. Yeah, and that's similar with podcasting too. It just, instead of sound, kind of think of it like the topics and stuff, bringing
Yeah.
your own perspective on things. And but what I was getting at too with the snare thing is like the way that you spent like hours on the snare, clients might spend like hours trying to get they'll on Zoom calls too. Sometimes you get one person who's just like talking into the mic on their laptop in an echoey room, and another person speaking into a nice mic. So it's like, how do you balance all this? And like
I
people
bet.
like you and me, they don't know how to do it, just because to train the ear is what takes years,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And that's something that you
There's some
can't
that
just
are
go
just
on
born
YouTube.
with that, like just the
Mhm.
ear, just like okay, yeah, I'm not a just, but yeah, oh yeah, it takes. That's what I said. It's not for everybody because
Yep.
they are, as I said, they may listen to it differently from you. I'm like, to this day, I say, damn, how did they put that out to master? Because sometimes you hear like mistakes. Other
Yep.
people ain't gonna pick it up. No, I said, there's something wrong with that track. There's something wrong with
Yep.
it. But what do you mean? It's all, people can download it. I said, yeah, I know my point exactly. I said, they threw
That's the
this
problem.
out.
Oh man. Yeah. But you just reminded me of something too, though, that most people won't notice that stuff. And then also, because I have some clients that, and I've seen some memes where it shows people like listening back to their own voice and then like throwing their phone off of the bridge because they're like, what the heck? I didn't know I sounded like that. But listen, people, like, don't worry too much about the way that your voice sounds, because really what's important is the value that you're putting out there.
Yes.
And then just hire someone like me or like DJ Gamer over there. We'll clean up your voice
We'll
a
clean
little
up
bit,
that voice. You need some auto tune to go with that? I got you.
Woo!
Yeah. You need some auto tune. You need.
Oh, that would be funny. I always think about like if I ever have clients who release their episodes on which is coming up the 1st of April Fools, I'm like, oh, I should just auto tune a little section of their
Of there.
episode. Just, but then I'm like, no, I
Drop
don't want to
it.
get fired. Like, hello, welcome to the
Hello.
podcast.
Yeah. Nah, man. That's, like I said, look, just funny how, just certain people won't get it, but everybody just stick to your idea. If you have a vision,
Mhm.
most of all, it didn't even have to be podcasting. I said, just always stick to that vision. I said, if it's something good, something positive to that benefit, whatever community it is that you're trying to reach, stick with it.
Mhm.
I said, just know that it's not gonna be a straight line. Nothing really ever is a
That's
straight
right.
line. It's
Mhm.
just, and sometimes you may have to go right for a second and then you're gonna end up back in the middle, or you have to go left, but you come back to the destination. It's overall what it is. So
Yeah.
definitely, man. So as far
Yeah.
as, what do you, somebody out there that maybe wants to think about this,
Mhm.
what do you recommend? What tips would you give a new podcaster like, myself and others and stuff like that? Like out the back, what is it like? What are your tips?
Yeah. So let's look at it from like a DIY standpoint, because either you go DIY and you got to spend time and energy, or you hire someone and then you got to spend money.
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of people will go in the middle, they'll hire someone to help with some things, because really with podcasting, it's not just like you said, it's not just like talking into the mic and then just like putting it online. There's a lot involved, and you got to also worry about the show notes. A lot of
Mhm.
people will also do transcriptions, and then you also have to think about even launching the thing. Like which host are you using, man?
Anchor. I'm using
Anchor,
Anchor.
yeah. So if you're gonna DIY it, Anchor's a good one because it's pretty accessible, helps you get going. And then if you get kind of chugging along and you decide, you can always upgrade to like Libsyn or Buzzsprout or something, just because they have some more abilities on some of the other things as far as expanding and stats
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But um, so a lot of the stuff, really, if you have the time and the energy, your friend YouTube can help you out for sure.
Oh yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah. It's a
yep, I'm
major
sure it
buddy.
helped
You
you
got
too.
it right there.
Yep. And but like we were talking about before you even think about launching, make sure you have your why ready. Make sure you have a game plan. I'd say make sure, and you kind of touched on this real quick before, maybe having that little bank of ideas. And I always tell people, maybe have a little note, like open a note on your cell phone or whatever you want to do, but have a place where you can write down ideas for episodes,
Yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
life happens. And then if you release your podcast on Wednesdays, for example, if you're not careful, you'll find yourself at 10 at night on a Tuesday, like, oh my God, what am I going to do for tomorrow's episode? And it can
Mm-hmm.
happen sometimes, but if you have a list, and this sounds excessive, but this is what I tell my clients who are mostly entrepreneurs and business podcasters, but I say, if you can have like 50 things on that list, I know it sounds crazy, but if you can have like 50 ideas, you are going to be much more comfy and less stressed as you go along.
True.
Because there's going to be weeks, and then there's going to be weeks where it's like, oh my gosh, I met this guy or I met this lady and she's going to be perfect to have on. And then just out of nowhere, there's your podcast idea. But there's also going to be weeks where it's something else comes up, a family thing or something. And you need to have that list to lean on, you
Yeah,
know?
you do. You
And,
do.
yeah. And then as far as like most people do, some people do every other week. Most people do weekly. Some people do twice a week as far as releasing, but weekly is kind of the standard. And then just making sure you have that plan in place. As far as the technical stuff, you can start pretty simple. Audio Technica ATR 2100X USB. You can go with that. You know, a lot of times the room you're recording in is more important than this microphone itself.
True.
Do the clap test, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if
See
it's
how long it
echoing
takes
in there, like,
for it to
you
get
better
back to
take
you.
yeah, because then if we want to nerd out a little bit, you get into like not only that echo messes with the sound quality and also makes it difficult to edit well, but then you also get phase cancellation where the echo is canceling out some of the sound waves and it makes your voice sound bad. It just makes your voice sound like tinny,
Oh yeah.
you know, or
Uh-huh.
so you can run into issues. It's not just the echo itself, but it's the repercussions of that echo. So um, I always tell people that's a huge, because I've recorded videos on like my iPhone mic and it sounded okay just because there was no echo in the room, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge thing. A lot of times, like you're running with a Yeti mic. That's a good one if your room is treated and if it's not echoey. If you have an echoey room, then you may want to go with a dynamic mic, something like this. Or if you have like the gardeners out there, a dynamic style mic, because it'll reject. You know, if I get further away from the mic, you can probably not hear me as much. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah.
so it'll reject that unwanted sound. But really don't get too hung up on like the equipment. A lot of times it's really just getting a USB mic. Uh, make sure that you are using the correct technique too. A lot of people will be an inch away from their microphone, speaking right into it. It'll be all muffled and booming around.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people, you know, even more often, the person will have it like way off on their desk and they'll be way back here. And it's just, if you're too far away from the mic, you have to turn it up to compensate. And then, as you know, that also turns up the background noise.
Yep.
So you want to make sure you're not too close or too far away. Usually I say like maybe a hand sideways hand's length or something, or maybe, and then figure out if you're going to speak straight into the mic or off axis a little bit. Do some tests. A lot of it is trial and error. Make sure you have some type of pop filter or little windsock thing around it. But really you don't have to worry. Definitely focus more on the content
Mm-hmm.
and practicing, and then figuring out how to get more earballs on that show. The
There you
marketing
go.
plan, which a lot of times people, you know, people aren't going for like cold marketing as much these days, or just like ads popping up and stuff. It can work, but really what works amazingly these days is engagement, being
Yeah.
real,
Oh
talking with
yeah.
people, connecting. I can't stress that enough. You know that too, man. And that's a huge part of it. So just be ready to put in the time doing that. Or if you have, you know, if you have like a co-host, that's amazing, because then you both
Yes.
can do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
If you're a business person, you can hire somebody, but make sure. I really like transparency. Like I've seen, like Marie Forleo, for example. She's a businesswoman. She has a team that helps her, but the Instagram account is called Team Marie Forleo. So it's not people pretending to be her. It's people saying like, "Hey, we're her team." You know, so then there's not this confusion, because a lot of people think like that once you hire a team, it's like, "Oh, I'm not really talking to the person," you know? So just be careful with that too, because that's part of being authentic, you know?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So a lot of my tips, you got to keep in mind too, that a lot of my tips are definitely kind of more, um, thrown at you on the side of like entrepreneur and business side. But really, to be honest with you, if you want to have a successful podcast, you're basically an entrepreneur.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yep. You know
Pretty
that
much,
too.
because at the end of the day, it's like I'm saying, that's the vision you have for what you want to talk about or what you want to tap into. That's just, what
Yep.
it is. Because I've had like different situations where it was like what we were going to talk about was not even about gaming. It was about
Mm-hmm.
something on a serious note, but nonetheless, it's just like you adapt to it. You adapt to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you just focus on that. But it's true. Like at the end of the day, it's just about okay, what vision you have for this, and
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I had gaming, life, and all that because current events happen like with the pandemic, when
Mm-hmm.
with the whole rioting, Black Lives Matter, all this, like all that stuff was happening, and
Yep.
it's just like, yes, I get we're gamers, we collect stuff and everything, but we still impacts us a certain way, life just
Yep.
outside of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm always about that. It's just like, if you're gonna talk about something, but also understand that life happens to you and it affects everybody.
Yep.
It's not like it just targets a certain people. No, it stuff like that affects everybody. So you can talk about it, share your thoughts, and if you can have somebody join you with that, you go. But we adapt
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But overall, this is something that you're creating. So
Yep.
just be cautious. Like again, if you're gonna bring in a co-host, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to find a co-host just to
Mm-hmm.
like bounce ideas, so bounce
Yep.
energy as far as like if we go tackle a topic. So
Right. Yeah, I think that's good, man. I think it depends on the type of podcast you have, but definitely your microphone, that's your voice too,
yeah,
and I think there's a lot of topics these days that we shouldn't really be silent on,
no,
because there's a lot
yeah,
of stuff going on in the world where it's been going on too long and people are just sitting on the sidelines. Like I'm over here, I'll tell you right now that I'm happy to say that we got to stop Asian hate, and we got to do a lot in the community for
oh yeah,
African Americans. And there's so much, and for people living in poverty, there's just so much that needs to happen. And just, if, like you said, if you even just bring it up or talk about it, it brings it back onto people's minds, because it's easy to get in your own bubble and be like, okay, everything's fine. It's
yeah,
actually easier to just live in ignorance and ignore that stuff, but that's not the right way to live, because people need help.
yeah. People need help,
So,
man. People need help,
mhm.
and it just like again about the whole Asian hate. It's just like, okay, when does this gonna stop?
I
I
can't
said,
believe there's still people like that, to be honest with you,
yes,
man. It's insane.
exactly. I'm like, I said, dude, if it's not one thing, you jump right to a next one, then you jump to it's
Hmm.
like, come on, what?
Well, that's like the name of the game. These, like, I make not to like make light of the subject, but I make this joke. I'm like, I swear to God, like a portal to another dimension could open up right next to me. I'd be like, I'm not surprised
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
with
At
everything
this
going on.
point,
Yeah.
nothing surprises me.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my god! I said, you know what? At this
Hmm.
point, nothing surprises me. Yeah, like something could just fall from the sky. I'm like, oh, where did that come from? But that's what I'm saying. Nothing surprises me.
They are saying, I think there's going to be some new stuff coming out on UFOs or something soon, and it's like, uh, yeah, I guess surprise me. What's it going to be?
I mean,
What's it going to be? I just, hopefully it's not. Hey, if it's not something about people dying and racism, then I'm all
I
game
think
for it, because
I'm like, I'm gonna tell
I'm
you,
tired of that.
give me something new. I said,
Yeah,
I need something good here
yeah.
because as you can see, what's going on here. Just give me something new.
Yeah. So, hey, see, this is about being authentic, and this is about bringing your voice too. So I think that's a huge part of podcasting. And it's knowing your audience too. Because if you're a business podcaster, I think it would be good and responsible of you to like bring it up, but also you would have to be careful not to make the whole episode about it, because then you might lose listeners and then
Mhm.
people wouldn't be hearing you anyway. So, um, it depends on what kind of podcast you have, just to bring it back kind of to the tip side of things. But for my clients, it's about being concise and bringing the value, and but also, yeah, letting it go with the flow with the guests. And But then, yeah, once you're and usually you'll want to launch with like, I usually say at least 3 episodes if you can, just because then you got the hype going. You're like, hey, I'm going to launch.
Yeah.
And then if people like one episode, there's a couple more they can listen to, and I don't know. I didn't have a chance to check. I don't know if you have a trailer, but definitely take advantage of that if you don't.
That's the
Yep.
I'm working on that right now.
Now
I'm
I
working.
caught you, man.
Yeah, I'm working on the trailer because I already got the vision and ideas that I'm gonna record the footage,
Mhm.
and I already narrowed it down to the theme music. I had somebody like,
Nice.
hey, this is what I want. This is what kind of, and she sent me over a few samples, and I'm like, I'm listening because people sometimes you gotta listen to the music, and sometimes that opens up your ideas of how you want to shoot the footage.
Mhm.
Because
They
if
go
it's
hand in hand. Yeah.
depending on tones, depending on you got to feel for it. Because she sent me a couple of them that I wasn't feeling, and then I said, look, I don't feel that. I said because
Mhm.
the vision I have for this is always important. Like if you're gonna go and tap into trailers, theme music, all that stuff, it has to be what you're comfortable with and what you feel. So
Yep.
I'm doing that. So the good
Yeah.
thing you said that trailer. I was like, oh
Yep.
man, I got the trailer in the works, and
Yeah.
the theme music. I already nailed it down. So just
That's good, man. Yeah, that trailer, that thing should be short, but it should be beautiful,
yes,
So
yes,
it's
yes.
funny, that thing might be like 2 or 3 minutes long, but it might take you hours to produce just
Yeah.
because
Uh
you want
huh.
it to be.
So what do you
Yeah.
recommend as far as trailer length? Like, because I was
Mhm.
thinking a minute, even like just like max
Mhm.
minute.
I think that's great. Yeah, especially because of so the good thing with podcasts though is the studies show that the listeners are more patient than like YouTube viewers, for example. Like YouTube viewers, I think you get like 10 or 15 seconds or something that they decide if they're going to watch. I think the studies show with podcast listeners, it's at least 30 seconds or something they'll give you before they decide like, yeah, I'll listen, or no, I'm going to go to something else. So that's another thing, whether it's your trailer, whether it's just an episode, whatever it is, make sure you're hooking people in right
Yeah.
away, like, so I'd say a minute. That's amazing. If you can get all the info you need, who, what, when, where, why, maybe you don't need a couple, maybe you don't need, actually, probably people like to know where you are. Definitely need who, what, when are you gonna, when are you, when are the episodes coming out? What frequency? Why? That's good too. So I guess you do need all of them: who, what, when, where, why. If you can include all that stuff, definitely be playing with the music a little bit, kind of in
No,
the
yeah.
background,
So
and
I said vision for the trailer. It says like, I'm gonna give you entertainment factor as far as like you're gonna see like okay, yeah, he's it's about gaming, but it's more than that as well. It's just
Mhm.
not gonna just that's the vision I got here. So I'm just
Yep.
like gonna throw in some nice twists, some just a lot of references, a lot of like just like 90s stuff, a lot of I'm putting my own
Nice.
twist to everything though. I said at the end of the day, I said I got the idea because of this through this, but making it my own vision, everything. So that's where I'm at right now. And and that
Mhm.
alone could take you time because sometimes you get an idea and then you see something, you're like, you know what, this will go with this, and then it's just, that's what
Mhm.
happens.
Yep. I think it's all about balance too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Oh
definitely
yeah.
don't want to just throw something out there just to do it, but also be careful, because if you spend too much time on something,
Mm-hmm.
then it's some people, like, they'll be like, you don't want to be a perfectionist, you know, just
No, no, by
because
no means.
if you are, sometimes that thing will never get out there.
Yeah, it'll never. So no, I'm
Yep.
cautious, definitely cautious of that too. I'm
Yeah.
just like, where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this, but enough to where it's like, okay, this is gonna be good. This is what I want. I'm not gonna overthink anything anymore. So I nailed it down. Now it's just about shooting it because
Mhm.
we got good weather now. I mean, well, at least yesterday there was a little bit of rain. I was just like, okay, where did the rain come from?
Yeah, I mean, we're only like depends on traffic, but we're only like a couple hours away from each other. But yeah, I was like, and I think tomorrow it's actually supposed to rain too. What, who
You
knows?
see what
But
I mean?
yeah, but
So
oh, what was I? Oh, I had a good point riffing on you there, going off of what you were saying, but I lost it. But yeah, the just finding that good. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of people don't know this maybe about podcasting, and this is different from YouTubing too, because you can't really do this on YouTube. And who knows if it'll change with podcasting, but you can replace and change everything. So if you record a trailer now, and then you decide you want to update it, you can replace that trailer. If you release an episode, and this happens sometimes, and then you're like listening back, or, and this is awesome once you start to get like these super listeners, you know, the people that are on your team, they'll send you a message. They'll be like, oh my gosh, dude, there's like, you must have missed it. There's like 15 seconds of silence in the middle of the episode. Like, oh no. So even after it's published, you can go back and fix that too. And you can change the show name. You can fix everything. Like YouTube, because I have my YouTube channel and stuff too. You can't do that. Like once you upload a video, there's some things you can change. Like if you have copyrighted music, maybe you can switch that, but you can't replace the video with something new.
Oh no. Yeah.
Unless they changed it, which I doubt they did. But I think that's actually, so I think that's kind of good at the same time. Cause sometimes I think about this, like the bait and switch, you know, like some people might go to the point where they like produce a whole podcast and get it to be, successful. And then they replace the episodes or something. But I don't think people have been dirty like that so far too much, to the point where they have to change the.
I'm like, I'm going to leave that because it's going to give me a reminder of where I started. I said, I'm going to leave, maybe I missed that on that. I'm going to leave all my stuff on and like, nah, look, because I want to see the progress. I said, yeah, you know what? Then maybe that episode didn't sound as good because I didn't have the mic at the time, but and then look how much better everything started going. So that's always a good thing to look back. Like even if it did sound like crap, I said, hey,
I think that's excellent advice. I think at some point you may update the trailer if you decide to do like seasons. And maybe you get into season 2, then you change the trailer just so people know kind of what to expect or whatever. But in general, that's great advice because it's a journey, and a lot of the top podcasts and top YouTube channels and stuff, if you look back to their first videos, especially some of the YouTubers, you ever watch YouTubers who like troll themselves?
Yeah.
Reacting to my first video 10 years ago. And they're like, man, I sucked.
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere, you
do. It's just, and it's wonderful just to tap in back and look. And then, like I said, because sometimes maybe we don't see the progress while we're in it. All it takes is like, oh, you know what? Let me go back to my first few episodes. And then you're like, oh man, you know what? Yes, we're progressing.
Yes.
We're
yeah.
progressing.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you don't know until you look. It's like when you're growing as a child or something, you don't know how much you're growing, but until you look back at like pictures from a couple of years ago. It's the same thing with like a business or a podcast or something. So more tips. Yeah. Let me just drop some more knowledge for those people who want to. I think we covered really well, like kind of just do it, but also find that balance of like have a good plan in place, focus on good value, but don't get that, like I think they call it like failure to launch, where you're such a perfectionist that you never even launch.
Yeah, you never hit the light of day.
Yeah, so it's just all about balance. And then a huge thing, I don't know if you're doing this yet, but a huge thing is getting in front of other audiences. And a big way to do that is being a guest on other podcasts too.
Yes, there you go.
Just because, and I tell my clients this all the time, I'm like, I can guarantee you your episode that's going to come out, like if they do an episode on another podcast and they do their own episode, I tell them, and I'm not telling you this to be like negative or anything, but I guarantee you the podcast episode that you were a guest on is going to bring more new listeners to the podcast than your own episode will.
Yes, that is
just because you're getting in front of new audiences.
Yes, yes. So definitely, I've done one or two, and now I'm looking to like, okay, because sometimes it's kind of hard to like, okay, how do I ask? Hey, can I be a guest? I mean, sometimes you just gotta go for it. I'm like, hey, just a way of delivering your message again. It's like, hey, you know what? I love your podcast. The vibes. I would love to be a
Mhm.
guest. Just, we can sit there and, chop it up, talk about something. So
Mhm.
I have been on two, and that is so true, because right away, like, hey, I followed you because I saw you on such and such podcast, and right away. And that is true. Once you make yourself a guest on other podcasts, and that's just
Mhm.
the building process right there. If you can
Yep.
get yourself out in any other podcast or something like that, then yeah, definitely go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, that's huge. And but I hear what you're saying. And really what you got to focus on there is called like pitching to other
Oh
podcasts.
yeah.
And there's I guess it kind of depends on your industry, I think with gaming and music and those types of things, a lot of times it can be kind of more laid back. Like, hey, I think, this is what I could always focus on the value that you can offer their audience. And and if you can do that, whether it be through a formal pitch letter that you send, or whether it be just through a DM or something, make sure that you make it very clear what value you're going to bring to that other podcaster's episode, that you're going to be on. Um, and if you can do that, that's going to be huge. Then there's also, and I can send you a list too if you want,
Oh
or
yeah. No, that.
anybody if they want to hit me up on Instagram, the podcast man. But there's also different businesses that are kind of like matchmakers.
Mhm.
It's like, matchmakers. But they're like matchmakers for podcast hosts and guests. And fortunately for you having a podcast, I think if you're a host, it's free to get on that platform. But if you're a guest looking to get onto podcasts, I think you have to pay for most of those services just because that service is helping you
Okay.
with that matchmaking. So um, that could be one way to go. There's interview valet and some of them like and you can just kind of type it into Google too, or I can shoot you some options. But um, and then yeah, I guess kind of the bigger the pod. Well, and I don't know if we should look at it this way because we want to be respectful of every podcast too, but really just make sure that you're sending a good pitch over. A lot of times it can be an official one with a letter and everything like, hey, this is what I'm going to offer. And this is, and now I'm thinking more along the lines of like entrepreneur business podcasts. But a lot of times when you're sending your pitch, you even send you even send them like what kind of questions they could ask you and stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you can make the job easier for them, then they're going to say like, heck yeah, come on to my
Come
podcast.
on in. Yeah.
And
Yep.
it just benefits everybody because we're all in this together. And I just love the way it's going. Like it, with being a musician, there's a little more of this like ego stuff going on. But I
Mhm.
feel like with the small business stuff that I'm seeing, it's like everybody is just like unconditionally helping everybody. It's just like we are all throwing the love around. And really, when you do that, it's only going to help yourself too, really. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. Nah, that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely, yeah. Send me that, man. Send me that information over, because, like I said,
Yeah.
anything always helps. Even if, like I said, maybe when people give you tips, everybody, it's just like maybe they have a different outlook that you're not seeing, and then like you get it, and then you're like, oh, okay, yes, this is helpful. This is I didn't think of that, and it's always good to get tips, because there's people that like, oh no, I got this. I don't need help, or no. It's just
You
like,
definitely don't want
no,
that
you don't.
attitude.
That's not the attitude you take. I say, because come on, athletes practice every day, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they get tips that have coaches giving them tips. So always
Yeah.
break it down like that. There's always somebody coaching somebody, showing you something. No one's
Mm-hmm.
ever like comfortable with like, no, I got this. I don't need no help no more. It's like, no, just because you hit a free throw, don't think you're not gonna need any more coaching. No, you're gonna need coaching
Pretty
all the
much. That
time.
sums it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I made one free throw. Oh, I got this. Move, coaches. I don't need no coaches. Like, no, it's helpful. That's why everybody be open to get criticism more than anything too.
Oh, yes.
You gotta be
That is so
open
important.
to get criticism,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you grow. That's how you adapt to certain things. Like maybe like, what? Yes, they have a point. So always be open to get tips, criticism, and again, just to push forward. Sometimes you need the tips, you need the criticism, you need all that stuff. And
Yep.
not and you're not always going to get good comments. You're going to get those crappy ones too.
Mm-hmm.
Always be prepared for that too. I said, don't let
Yeah.
a bad comment discourage you. I said,
Right. That's
Don't.
amen, man. That is, and you got to know how to also distinguish between constructive criticism and trolls, because some people are just
Yes.
going to be trolls and just let those roll off your shoulder. But
Oh yeah.
constructive criticism, and it's not always easy, and I think a lot of us also have a lot of psychological and emotional things. It's not always easy to take the constructive criticism, but you learn over time, and that's just gonna make you better. Like if somebody tells you you're doing awesome, that is your fuel. But if somebody gives you constructive criticism, that's like your education right there to
Oh yeah.
like, hey, maybe I could. And then some people, like, my tips may not work for everybody, maybe because I have one perspective, like you say. So just take everything with a grain of salt, but also um you just, yeah, you got to be open to that for sure.
Yeah.
That is, I can't stress that
Open.
enough, man.
Oh yeah.
Exactly what you
Open to
said.
somebody helping you, because again, they maybe
Oh
they,
yeah.
they they already did this path and they know where
Yep.
exactly where you're going. It's just like, again,
Hmm.
take it. That's why I'm always like, oh yeah, any ideas, tips. I'm
Hmm.
always like, yeah, just gathering stuff, because again, it's like you say, once you write those 50 things down, you write all these tips down, and then you're gonna be like, oh damn, you know what? Yes, that's gonna work right now.
Yeah, man.
You
And
just never
hey,
know. You just never know when and where those tips and ideas come into play. Because I've had things like, well, I'm never going to use this. And then it's just that one incident, that one time. I'm like, you know what? Yes, I need to use that right now.
yeah. And I was just going to throw the mic back at you and say, if you have any specific podcasting questions, because chances are, if you have any, then other people probably have the same questions. I don't know if you have any specific ones or.
Well, I mean, as far as my questions and stuff like that, I just like, again, I'm still fairly new at this.
Mhm,
I've had a itch for it. I've had like just an idea, and a
mhm.
comfort, a confidence about this to do it. Um,
Yep.
just mainly, again, just my tips, my questions that I wanted to ask, as far as like, okay, I don't know if you've seen any of my stuff. It's just
Mhm,
the vision. What do you think? Though I had am I spot on with what I'm doing?
mhm.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think it's great. Well, you have the good vibe, and a lot of times people say, and it's true, um, and you're not necessarily like selling products or anything, but what you're trying to do is find more people to build your community, right?
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to be authentic and be nice. You're definitely authentic and nice.
Right.
People need that,
Yeah.
and I'd say definitely just uh kind of continuing with that strategy and just thinking of, okay, what type of episodes am I going to release? Like, am I going to focus more on kind of like my, you think of your listener avatar, like who
Mhm.
is your ideal listener? Who's going to be, you can nerd out. This is the same with business, like my ideal client avatar is 42 years old. He lives in San Diego and he has 2 kids, and it sounds nerdy, but if you can kind of focus on like, so who's your listener avatar? And then just think your listener avatar is probably people like you, like just chill people who like gaming and who need positivity during the all the time, but during these times, and then you think like, okay, I kind of know who my ideal listeners are. Now, how do I find them? How do I speak to them? And then listening through your episodes, like, are they going to vibe with this? Like if I were listening to this, would I keep listening? Is this working for me? And maybe you will have some people who will see the title of this one, if you title it like podcasting tips, and maybe they'll be like, oh, I don't really need that. That's okay. And then maybe other people
Oh
will
yeah.
find your podcast because it says podcasting tips. And then that person is also like a gamer, or in kind of the way I meant to word that really too, is maybe vice versa. Maybe there's gamers who listen to your podcast, so they find it, and then they're like, oh, I need to start a podcast too. So either way, but just
The
be
way it
thinking of
works.
like, okay, I have these episodes. Are if I were my ideal listener, would I listen through it? Would I listen to the whole thing? And then just definitely focusing on hooking people in right away. A lot of times people will grab a snippet from the episode and they'll throw it at the beginning, like a hook.
Yeah.
You can do that. A lot of times people will start the episode like maybe 30 seconds, just be like, hey, what's up? It's Zach. Today I'm going to be talking about this and that. And so stick around and, we'll get to it. And then your intro music starts. So kind of really thinking of hooking people in right away. And, kind of like a TV show or something. They start off with some funny little thing or something,
Yeah.
like, oh God, I got to watch this now, You can even start, even if it's like, I think I've heard some of your episodes, you have different types of guests, and maybe it's even something shocking. Somebody says like, and then he fell off the balcony and onto the bed spring, and they're just like, what the heck are they talking? I got to listen to this, so just kind of hooking people in and then keeping them along for the ride. Yeah, that's really thinking that way too. Like I think that way with it's similar with music, and art and a lot of things. Just like find people who have that interest and then figure out how to hook them in and keep them along the line, and it's easier said than done. And I'm also not saying like hook them in like as in they're like fish or something, like people are people. People aren't followers, people aren't subscribers. People are people. But I just use these words just as far as like we're talking about podcasting as entrepreneurial kind of pursuit. So just so the listeners know, your boy, he loves you all. He's not thinking of you like, I got to hook him in. It's not like that. The reason really is that you want to find more people so you can share the message and build the community.
Yes.
You're providing value. And sometimes maybe the value you provide is just fun, but that's value too, because we need to have fun. Like there's entertainment podcasts, there's entertainment YouTube channels, and sometimes the value you provide is entertainment, and we really need that now. We need to hang out with people, and sometimes the best way we can hang out with people is on a podcast or a YouTube channel.
That is so true, man. That is just dead on, spot on with that. That's just exactly what it is. That's definitely what it is. And damn, man, everybody, that's Zach, the podcast man. And, as we exit out on this podcast, plug in what you want to plug in and a spot you recommend to eat around where you're at.
Oh yeah, right here in Encinitas. Well, my favorite food around here is Mexican food for sure.
There you go.
Why are you making me think about this? I'm getting hungry. There's a lot of good places. We really like this one called the Taco Stand. That's a good place. Good solid name. But then there's also Filiberto's, which has been there for like, I don't know how long. It's the 24-hour a day, never lets you down place. And
there you go. Okay.
It's a place where you pay them, and what you get is a mountain of food. It's none of this like, okay, I give you a little plate because a lot of times, in Southern California, like you pay and you're like, what is this? Like a French size portion or something? I'm not fancy. I need a huge plate, but there's that. And then just, we don't go out as much these days, but we're looking forward to getting back out there and supporting how we can. We've been buying gift cards to some places and still doing takeout and everything. But man, you didn't ask me any gaming questions. I was going to pretend to know something, man. I love my old Nintendo days from when you said you're a 90s kid too, right?
Yes.
Oh man, I just died to get back from school just to play my old original Nintendo, and I'm blowing in the game cartridges and throwing my controller at it when I'd get mad.
Oh yeah. that was raging then.
Oh, I love it, man. Now I play my little Nintendo DS with my Mario in there or whatever, that's what a great way to just like wind down. We all need to have time where self-care is so important. It's such an important part of mental health. And if anybody's struggling out there, man, you're not alone, and take time for yourself. Yeah.
But
absolutely.
There you go, everybody. And where can people follow you, look for you, all that good, wonderful stuff?
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm just at thepodcastman.com, or if you look up the podcast man on Instagram, I think there's underscores between the words or something, but you'll find me on there. Those are the places I'm hanging out the most. Instagram, my Facebook is like crickets over there just because I don't do that as
Oh
much.
yeah.
But
You know what? Same here. I just
yeah.
like, I think at this point, Facebook is, I just look at it for like, oh, on this day, 5 years ago, that's it.
Oh,
Like
the
the
memories
memories.
are fun. Or like talking to family, but otherwise it's like,
Yeah,
I
no.
love Instagram for and the community and everything. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, there you go, everybody. You have some tips to go by, and if you need more help, I'm pretty sure my man here is more than willing to help
oh
anybody
yeah.
reaching out, because again, that is a good dude, and there's a reason why I hit him, because I know he's a good dude. I said, for doing
Thanks,
the
man.
stuff that he
Likewise.
does. I said he's giving us information, helpful tips, guidance, because before anything, these tips are a guide. So
Hmm.
just like anything else, when you're gonna get into it, you're gonna look for guidance. And
Yep.
if you're gonna go into podcasting, if you're gonna get into doing this, we need guide. So this is a
Hmm.
perfect way to start. Maybe if you have an idea, like, hey man, I have an idea to start a podcast. What? And then this again, it all comes back to, this is a guide. These are tips. So anybody who needs them, definitely check them out. That is Zach, the podcast man. And we are out on that note. It's the boy DJ Gamer, that retro modern gamer, and nothing but peace, love, and positivity, everybody. Let's have a wonderful day. And let's bring on that weekend. It is Wednesday, but we're not too far from that weekend. So
Yep.
peace, everybody.
Thank you, brother.
That's right.
Yeah.